right towards the camera. Welcome back, friends of the channel. Those of you who are not from the East Coast might recognize that I have my hickory shirt on. That can only mean one thing: forestry. Today we're going to be taking a look at a very interesting tool, the pocket chainsaw. Now wait, I know we've all seen the pocket chainsaw before. This one's a little bit different. Let's see what we brought down here to play with today. When I'm doing this sort of clearing, I pretty much exclusively have went to hand tools. The power tools, they save time, but when you add everything up with the mixing of the gas and the sharpening and all of that, I don't think you come out ahead, and the experience is much worse. The noise, the ear protection, safety equipment, and just the general hazard of it. So these, my go-to have been these two saws, and of course this is not the end-all be-all. I do like the Samurais because they're a little cheaper than the Silkies, but we all know how good that one is. So I'll use that in combination with my Grand Forestbrook Small Forest Axe. Right there, that's the 1-2 punch for forestry work right there. So why the pocket chainsaw, and what's different about this one? Well, one of my subscribers sent this to me and said, you got to try this, it's really good. And I thought, oh goodness, haven't we all seen the pocket chainsaw? I mean, we've all been down that road. I mean, I think I did my first pocket chainsaw review on the Wrangler Barn channel over a decade ago. But nonetheless, he sent it, and when I opened it, I thought, well, this is a very different deal here altogether. This is actually a real chainsaw blade instead of the little phony ones, little pressed steel ones like we've seen in most of those cheap survival kits. Not only that, is it's pretty long, and it's got a good strap system, pretty robust, properly cross-stitched, and good materials and nice webbing, and I even like these little guys. So I thought, well, let's try it out and see. I'm always looking for something that would save space and save work, and when it's all combined, I mean, really, when it fits inside this small container right there, I mean, that's pretty hard to beat. Here's a little trick that'll save you a lot of aggravation. I got to give credit out to my man Nut and Fancy. I learned this from him. Spray some WD-40 on your blades before you use them, especially when you're working with high resin wood. I'd like to know, I don't get very much WD-40 actually on the items that I'm spraying. I would say 90% of it goes onto the ground. I'm quite curious to see how this works. Now, I don't know, I wouldn't think that a man would have enough horsepower or arm power to run a regular chainsaw chain, even if it's a small one, but we'll find out. Now, this is, obviously, it's a little bit more fussy. It's not as easy as, grabbing a saw and cutting. But if I don't mind it being a little bit slower, because it's so compact. So, how does it work? Yeah, let's see. Wow, actually works pretty good. The first thing that I noticed was the aroma, the smell. That must be downwind. That pine smells so good. It truly is the most beautiful time of the year down here. We have acres and acres of wild alpine strawberries. They're just finishing up right now. Let's see if there's a few here, if I could show you. I think the bears there's bear scat all over the place here. They've been down here hoovering them up, but the Sweet Loaf and I have been down here just gorging ourselves on them. It's surprisingly easy to use. It doesn't bind near as much as I thought it would, except for when at the very end, and then you have a little trouble getting through that last little bit. I've got two trees, this pine and that pine right there, kind of similar branch-wise. Let's do a cut test. We'll do 7 and 7. How quickly I can cut 7 with the pocket chainsaw versus the Samurai. I'll leave it up to you guys to kind of judge what the difference is. I'm gonna work hard as I can here, and we'll see. We'll do 7 and 7. All right. Came back and about broke my thumb there. Don't pull on it too hard. That last bit's a bummer when it starts to pinch. Oh, not as flexible as I once was. Of course, you got one hand. Can you beat a Japanese saw? No, you cannot. It's a joy to use. And these curved ones like this, for you guys who don't like to bend down all day, are really great. You can go down and hook and pull things the way that's on there. I don't know if that was by design or just a a beneficial side effect. Now let's take a look at the hatchet. You know, the hatchet, of course, is the most romantic of all the tools. You kind of have this, I think a lot of Americans, thinking back to the days when the country was being discovered, and this idea of taking off with a musket and a hatchet and being independent and building a log cabin, I think that resonates with a lot of us. You want your hatchets to be sharp though. This one's sharp. Here, you want proof? Is my hatchet sharp? Who could ask such a question? There'll always be one though. Let's say it wasn't sharp, but also, don't forget, this samurai, ouch, cut my hand off there. This samurai saw is, what, 5, 6 years old? Used a lot, so never been sharpened, right? So take that for what it's worth. So here's some paper, and I keep my hatchets sharp. If there's any question, it's sharp. Now, of course, woodlot clearing can be done with a hatchet, but there's a couple things. First off, when you get into brushy stuff, they're hard to swing. You need a lot of area with them. With a saw, you can work in a lot tighter area. The other is they're fraught with hazard. One mistake and you cut your femoral artery and you die, and your wife finds you, 4 hours later, right? So there is that as well. But the positive side is that it's simple. You don't have to worry too much about it. There's not a lot of fiddling. You can grab it and go. And we all have the top side, or all have our plus sides. Now, the thing with a hatchet when you're using it, it doesn't cut very well straight on. You have to cut at an angle. And what that ends up doing is that leaves a kind of a ragged, you could see right there. It actually, sometimes if you don't have the right limbs, it will pull it out of there, and that's kind of harming to the tree. It leaves a nasty, raggedy edge on there. For our final test in the pocket chainsaw, will it take down a tree? We got about a 6-inch ponderosa right here. This is in a little grove of 4 trees, and that's too many. So we'll take out this one and that one right there and leave these 2 here. So let's give it a shot and see. I mean, this is, that's probably, that might be closer to 8 inches. I'm not going to say it's a big tree, but in a survival application, this would be just about what you'd be looking for some firewood, wouldn't it? All right, I'm going to cut this up here a little bit higher just for convenience, and then I'll nip that down with the chainsaw. Let's see, can we take down this tree? What a treat for you guys. The lighting today is beautiful. I'm actually putting very little effort into this. I'm getting nice, great big chunks. How far are we in? Oh, I thought we were past the halfway point. But you can kind of get into a rhythm here. It's not super, I'm not exerting myself that hard. It really cuts though. It's an interesting cut pattern because it's cutting from the back as well as the sides. It's basic, what I have left by holding wood is kind of a U pattern right here. So that's a little different. So we are, well, I'd say we're 2/3 of the way through. I could probably cut this tree down in about a minute. Now we're getting kind of thin right there. Let's put a wedge in there. There's no holding wood. Right towards the camera. The pinching component of it is the way that it pinches after the cut makes it a little bit fussy to deal with, but even a saw, I work in conjunction with an axe anyway, so. Well, we got kind of a mean hanger here. It's just big and heavy enough where I can't quite move it around without, well, I can pull it back this way. Bucking, I think, is where the pocket chainsaw is going to really come into its own. This is where it's going to actually probably be better than a hatchet. And to be honest, if I was cutting limbs off of trees, I'd rather use the pocket chainsaw than a hatchet. It's got that binding problem, but I think it's a little bit cleaner. But this is what we really want to see, right? We take this down, we need some 16-inch pieces for firewood. Boy, it cuts. The shavings, they do fly, but it does bind. It does bind. Well, you can see. All right, the pocket chainsaw. Let's wrap up with my conclusions and we'll head on back up to the house. The rain's coming in. So what's my conclusion of the pocket chainsaw? Well, I'd say this. The pocket chainsaw, to me, is good in that it's standard equipment. We could resharpen it. We could use our chainsaw sharpening tools, no problem. Very light, very compact, affordable. 19 bucks or so for one of these. And I just don't really see a downside. Now, is this a production item? Is this something that you're gonna go out and make money with? Well, no, it's not. And it's not that great to use because of that binding problem. But let's say for a survival item or an emergency item or something to throw in the glove box of your car, it's pretty easy for a tree to get knocked down in a windstorm, and it doesn't take too much of a tree to prevent a quad from getting over, or side by side, or even more so a passenger car. So you could get out there and inside of 15 minutes or so, pretty much anybody could get 2 cuts made and roll that section out of the way and get yourself going. Because it's hard to get through wood if you don't have a tool or a device. And just try chopping through with a screwdriver. Ask me how I know, right? So for that, I think it's a pretty good deal. It's one of those things, you know, and a lot of this stuff kind of comes through my hands. You know, people send stuff, and, you know, some of the stuff that I've acquired from the cheapest tools on Amazon, most of it doesn't, hardly any of it stays around. This is something I'd keep. I would keep. Will I ever use it again? Probably not. Will it be in the glove box riding along, or maybe in a survival kit? Is it good for something like that? It is. It is. And it does cut. Don't get me wrong. If you can work around that binding problem, but it's legit. It totally works. And it's easier to pull than I thought it would be. I didn't know how hard that would be for just one man or one manpower to be able to do it, but obviously it cuts pretty well. How does it work in hard dry wood? You East Coast guys, I don't know. Do you ever get outside anyway? Do you have any forest left over there? It's always funny. People think of New York. You know, my first time when I was in New York, like, good grief, this is the biggest city I've ever seen. But you just drive up north a little bit and it opens up into some of the most beautiful country you'd ever seen, and rural too. So I didn't know. Our country is so big, you know, there's just so much diversity to it. All right, well, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to click the thumbs up if you enjoyed these. Keep us in your prayers. May God bless you and your families, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Guys have asked me of late, hey, can you give us context when you're working on something? Can you tell us why and where and what you're doing? And I'm happy to do that. So there, believe it or not, we have a large acreage. There are places that I have not set foot on because of, well, because of brush. The forest wants to reclaim itself. But I, on the other hand, kind of like a park-like setting, you know, something that you can actually use and see through, you know, cooperating with the with nature to get the outcome that you want. And this right here was yesterday's project. I cleared all this out. This was, if you look in there, do you see that brush? That's what this looked like. Now it's all clean, and of course we leave the mature trees, and we have an area that we can use. What a beautiful place with a meandering creek right through there that you could come down and have a picnic. Of course, Jack's Bridge is right there. It's just turning out so nice. But I love these alpine meadows. You can see there before and after. I just prefer this. So once I clear the ground cover, then we got to look to the trees, right? I'm really reluctant to take down trees, especially mature ones, unless I need be. But once you get it kind of cleared out, then you can make a better decision. Like in here, there's too many trees in this grove right there. We have 4 ponderosas. We don't need 4 ponderosas there when 2 would do. So we'll take some of those out like that. So everything, regardless, will get limbed up.